I was gonna ask
Mm-hmm.
when I find like a lot of artists when they first start out, not that they copy other people, but they look at their other people's styles in order
Mm-hmm.
to gain confidence. I know I did. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be Joe Rogan. I still want to be Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You know, and like I looked at Casey Neistat when he started his videos. I'm like, oh, that's sick. So I started buying some cameras and like
Yeah.
kind of copied other people as I started. But then I
Mm-hmm.
feel right now, 290 episodes in,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of coming into my own style of podcast. I'm kind of getting a little bit more comfortable and
Mm-hmm.
confident. How did you start out with that? Was there anyone that you looked up to and you're like, oh, I could kind of do something similar to that? Or were you just you right from the get-go?
No. Strangely, I actually when I first started, it was like we liked AC/DC and Nirvana and just like the stuff on the radio.
Yeah.
And then when I got into high school, I had this really cool girlfriend who introduced me to Sloan and Thrush Hermit and Super Friends and a lot of the music that came from here, came from Halifax. In the 90s, there was, I'm slightly older than you are, I guess, but in the 90s, there was like, there was a big music scene here that sort of received a lot of sort of global recognition. And people were looking at Halifax as if it was the new Seattle, and they were flying in here to see bands play, and they were signing bands, and there was like a bit of a gold rush for music from here. A lot of it was based on Nirvana's success and just the whole the idea of grunge music in general, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to be this like super dexterous musician like Steely Dan or something and just play every note. It's like there's actually really good music that's like 3 chords and just like it's rock and roll essentially, Anyway, so she passed me this tape and it had Hermit on it and it had Super Friends and it had Jail and it had like a bunch of cool bands that were from Halifax, and I thought I like the music, but I also just like learning about them and learning about Murder Records and the label that they had made their own label and they put out their friends' albums and stuff like that. And I just liked that idea. I was like, that I could do that. I sort of saw it as something that was accessible to me. When I looked at AC/DC, I never thought, oh, I can do what AC/DC are doing. But when I saw these bands, what they were doing and making music with their friends and basically making independent records, that seemed accessible to me and doable to me. So that was pretty big inspiration early on, musically and otherwise. And then, when I started playing, like, I had my own music. I had my own songs and I had my own bands. And at some point I realized that, like, man, my songs just, like, they're not developed enough. They're okay, but they're not strong enough to really be competitive in the bigger world.
What makes like a strong song? What do you mean by that?
Oh, jeez. Well, if you can answer that, you'll make $1 billion in the music
So no one
business.
knows. Okay.
No one knows.
Okay.
No one knows.
Okay.
Right?
So when you made one of your hit songs, did you
I
know
mean,
it was a hit song?
you know in here, as stupid as that sounds, in your heart, when you hear a song and it moves you,
Yeah.
that song's got the mojo,
Okay.
right? So I was writing songs, but they didn't always have that quality. That still happens, right? I still write lots of songs that you never hear, that I don't, that I even sometimes I record them, I have the band and we put a lot of effort into them, and then I listen to them and I have to just say, this one's just not, it's not doing it. It's not going to make the album, So in any case, in the early days, I sort of recognized that I liked doing it, but I wasn't getting many opportunities to play. I wasn't getting many opportunities to tour. And so I thought, well, geez, I'm pretty good at guitar. Like, maybe I could play guitar for someone else. Maybe someone would hire me as their guitar player. And then if I played guitar for a great artist, I could go on tour and I could have that experience, So it was like a light went off. Like, I came up with that realization and I put the feelers out there. And like the next day, I got a phone call from this guy, Howie Beck.
It's a great name.
Yeah, and he's a great artist and a great producer, and he's does a lot of studio work. And anyway, he had his own albums at the time, and he said, I'm putting out this album. I need a guitar player. Like, I went over to his house. We basically drank coffee. I don't even know that we played guitar, but we kind of hung out for an hour. He's like, okay, cool, let's do it. So that was like one of my first sort of professional experiences, like outside of my own music, like getting hired by someone else to play guitar.
Did you have like a part-time job at the time? Like, did you quit and then you got to do this?
Yeah,
That's
I did.
Cool.
I did. I worked in a factory for a long time.
What kind of factory?
They made like environmental textiles, like just really like liner. Like if you have a landfill or something, you'd line the earth with like this,
the black
this textile,
yeah. Okay.
so that it's hopefully pulling out some of the toxic stuff
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
our
yeah.
garbage before it leaches into the soil.
You made that stuff? You made the
Yeah,
black?
I made that, and I made Kevlar like for bulletproof vests, and it was we made all kinds of stuff, all kinds of products, mostly environmental products, but it was like these big looms, right, that are needling. You're putting raw materials into this thing. It goes through all this line, and it gets laid out on a conveyor belt, and it's getting needled by. It's like a giant sewing machine. It's getting turned into fabric,
Cool.
and then it would turn into these big rolls of fabric. And it actually ended up eating my finger there. I don't know if you can see this scar here, but
Oh, that's gnarly.
but when that happened, I mean, even this finger is still bigger than these other fingers.
Yeah,
But
it is.
I'm lucky that
You got big hands. You'd be like a good
yeah,
rebounder in
yeah, I do
basketball
have
or
big
something.
hands. Well, it works good for guitar because you can
Oh, yeah.
you can kind of get around pretty good, you know.
Good call.
Um,
So how'd you quit to your boss? You'd call him, or you're just like, listen, man.
well, it was sort of just these thing that like I had a flexibility in the job, and I could I'm going to go away and play for a long weekend, or I'm going to go
Okay,
away
cool.
I'm going to go away for a week, you know, and it eventually got to the point where it's like it just didn't make sense for me, and it wasn't fair to the employer basically to be like
Yeah.
constantly asking for time off, you know. And that's when you take the leap of faith and say, okay, I'm going to do this full time. And you know, some days you're eating ramen noodles like
Love
3
it.
times a day, and yeah, that's great. That's all that's you know, now looking back, you'd say, man, those were some of the best times, you know.
Yep.
Best years. But in any case, so I started playing with him, and then through him I met this guy Jason Collette, and I toured with him for years. And you know, got to make albums with him and do all kinds of cool music with him. But yeah, we went to Japan, and we went all over Europe. We toured in the States a ton. Like, got to have a lot of experience playing at a very high level, but not my music, right? It was like
Yeah,
it
but
was
still,
nice.
that's a great thing for
I
you.
know, but that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah.
It sort of has given me a big advantage, you know, to see it from that other side. And then through him, we opened for Feist, and over the course of the tour, you know, the bands kind of cross pollinated a little bit. Like they would play with us, and then I would play with her, and by the end of the tour, I was just kind of like playing guitar for the whole show in her band, and then yeah, so then I played with her for several years, and we toured all over the world. We played on, you know, we played on the Grammys, we played on SNL, we did all kinds of
You
cool
played on
stuff.
the Grammys.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. But
What
so
the
I had
hell?
this I
I'm
had
a
this
terrible
whole career.
researcher.
No, it's okay. But I had this whole sort of career in my 20s that was like as a side musician, and like that's in some ways it's part of the reason why I started when I came back to my own music, because when that Feist tour ended, you know, she came off the road, and it's like, you know, I was flying high. We were, you know, amazing music, amazing people. We were traveling all around the world, and then the tour ends. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to get a better gig than that. Like, that's, you know, the best gig. To my mind, I was like, that's like the best gig I could possibly get. And so in a way, that was kind of motivation to just reevaluate my own songs and say, well, maybe now I could like make a go of my own music, right?
How old
Because
are you?
I think I was 27.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it just basically, like, the Feist tour ended, and I didn't have a whole lot other things. I had some offers from other bands to go on tour, but like I said, I wasn't all that interested. I'd kind of been operating at that level,
Yeah.
and with, you know, no disrespect to the other music, I just thought like, well, geez, I don't want to like take a step down in that way. I want to like do something totally different.
Mm.
So I made my first record, you know, on my own, and it sort of caught on. People dug it, you know, and it gave me a lot of opportunities to go on tour. And, you know, I had a Subaru out Forester or something, and we would load it full of CDs and drive around and sell them to people, you know. It was fun.